Data discovery is the process of collecting, analyzing, and summarizing data to gain insights and identify patterns, trends, and anomalies. The goal of data discovery is to transform raw data into meaningful information that can support decision-making. For us, it's one of the first things we do when starting out a data storytelling project. Spending that time up front to explore the data is invaluable to the process overall. In this lecture, we'll explore data discovery and how it fits into the data storytelling process. We'll also introduce you to different data discovery methods, such as sorting, filtering, conditional formatting, and pivot tables. You'll see that a little bit of Excel knowledge can take you pretty far when it comes to exploring your data. This lecture will prepare you for our next set of lectures, which will be diving into the analysis of different data sets for your data story. Let's get started.
Data discovery is the process of collecting, analyzing, and summarizing data to gain insights and identify patterns, trends, and anomalies. Generally, the goal of data discovery is to transform raw data into meaningful information that can support decision-making. We use data discovery as an important first step to inspect and explore a dataset to find potential stories in it, perhaps even validate our thesis. If you're familiar with Microsoft Excel, then you can master data discovery. With a few simple steps and some curiosity, you can explore and understand your data. For example, with some basic sorting and filtering, you can identify high-level patterns or outliers in your data. For the more advanced data analysts, you might use a programming language like R or Python. This means having programming skills and working in a specific development environment. However, if you master a basic set of programming tasks, you'll quickly find interesting and unique ways to interrogate your data. To do data discovery, you, of course, need to have data. In a separate lecture, we talk through where you can find data and the different ways to source data. So here, we'll talk through a few data sources you can use to practice data discovery techniques. Let's first talk through the types of data sources. If you're looking to practice data discovery, there's a wealth of data out there. It ranges from freely available and downloadable data you need to scrape, databases or subscriptions you can purchase, to open data sources that are collected through government efforts and NGOs. Open data sources are an excellent way to get started with data discovery. 3 examples of open data are as follows. Data.gov, which currently has approximately 300,000 datasets ranging across many different topics, from the economy to climate to American demographics. Data.gov.uk, which is a similar government-sponsored open data site with tons of searchable datasets. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, also has a ton of climate data, which you can use to better understand climate change and its causes. Let's take a look at each of these. If you navigate to data.gov, you'll see a simple landing page with a search field. It also has a menu that's easily navigable. After you search for a specific topic, you'll get a set of results based on relevance. The results provide you with different landing pages, some directly queryable via the web page, and others where you have the data with some descriptions. Either way, there's a ton of data to explore here across many different topics. Most of the data you find on data.gov should be freely available, though you may need to do some data cleaning and transformation prior to analyzing it. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, has a great web experience as well. You can see from the landing page a fully featured website with links, supporting tools, and a space for help. NOAA does have searchability built into it, but there's more specific information around climate data, so you can count on getting very specific information for your climate projects. Lastly, data.gov.uk is a great source of open data across a number of different topic areas within the UK domain. Here, you can see the beta data.gov.uk site, which is less feature-rich than data.gov, but it follows the same principle. Search for different topics, or click on the links, and explore the datasets that are returned. In this lecture, we'll use a dataset from data.gov that focuses on financial crimes data. The search in data.gov was simply financial crimes. The dataset captures information about financial crimes across different U.S. states and territories. We selected a set of properties we wanted to explore on the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network site and downloaded the resulting dataset. If you want to check out the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network site, here's the site URL. Let's set the financial crimes data aside for a couple of minutes and explore some simple data discovery techniques. We can then apply those techniques to the financial crimes dataset. The first technique is sorting. If you've ever used a spreadsheet, you're likely very familiar with how to sort a column in a spreadsheet. Sorting is one of the simplest ways to start the data discovery process. For example, you can rank and sort the data in a spreadsheet in ascending or descending order. From there, you can explore which data ranks highest or lowest, or if there appears to be a grouping of data. We find sorting more useful on numeric values, for example, totals, averages, and so on. When sorting on values, you can quickly see which record bears the highest or lowest numerical value. Filtering is another technique for data discovery. Filtering constrains the view of data based on criteria you select. This might mean filtering on greater than or less than a specific value, or selecting specific values or categories within a column. Note that you can filter on unaggregated data, that is, data with all the records showing. However, you can also filter in tandem with pivot tables, which gives you the power to filter within a summary view. When doing this, you can get to very specific summary views. For example, comparing 2 out of 50 U.S. states for 3 out of 10 crimes. We are kind of addicted to conditional formatting. It's a simple way to create heat maps, and you can even do it in combination with sorting and filtering, so we use it a ton. Conditional formatting adds highlights, icons, or data bars to cells based on the values or categories in the cells. If you have numeric data, you can create a heat map and then sort the data to see how each record compares to the next. If the data is text, you can create rules to create icons or highlights. This is especially useful when you have categories or Likert scale values. Pivot tables are another go-to data discovery technique. They may seem a little overwhelming at first, but after you try them out, you'll see they are very powerful. A pivot table is a data summarization tool used in spreadsheet programs like Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, and data analysis libraries such as Pandas in Python. It allows you to reorganize and summarize selected columns and rows of data in a table to obtain a desired report or analysis. For example, you can create a pivot table where the rows are U.S. states with total count of specific financial crimes, and the columns are the counts across different years. You also have an assortment of other data discovery techniques available. For example, you can use a range of calculations that you can then turn into summary views. For example, sum, average, and count. These are functions built into most spreadsheet applications. Also, Microsoft Excel introduced a new AI feature recently called the Quick Analysis tool. This is a task pane where you issue a query and Excel's AI engine interprets the query and does the analysis for you. It's actually pretty good and will return different types of charts depending on the query. You can also translate tables into charts and graphs, and even split the data if you want to focus in on a specific aspect within one column. The more you practice data discovery, the quicker and more savvy you'll be able to explore and find your data story. Most important is that you'll often use these data discovery techniques together. That is, the more you use them together, the more focused your view of the dataset will be. This is a big question, because you can't take the first finding in your data and run to write the story. You should lean in when first interrogating your data and try to understand the subject matter that you're exploring. For example, in the financial crimes data, we selected one type of financial crime and sorted it on the total count by year. We then filtered by the top 10 worst offending U.S. states. At this point, you could stop and write a story about California being the worst offending state for financial crimes. Or you may even be tempted to politicize the story to focus on the top 2 worst offending states for financial crimes being blue states. We would recommend pushing deeper with your discovery. As you'll find, there are many ways to explore and interrogate your data, and each result brings with it potentially unique views with ever more interesting questions. This, we believe, is what leads to good data stories. For example, let's look at the incidence of financial crimes from a per capita perspective and see what the data tells us. To do this, you take the incidence of financial crimes, in this case, total count of financial crimes, and divide it by the population of the state, and then multiply that by 100,000. Now, we see that California drops down the list, and New York drops off the list. And interestingly, Delaware and South Dakota, the 45th and 46th least populated states, are now suddenly at the top. Now this gets interesting, right? This leads you to the question of, why are two of the least populated states generating the highest incidence of financial crimes per capita? And this should lead you to ask more questions that will require some manner of research. Now, the answer to this could be for any number of reasons. For example, it could be lower populated states have the highest incidences of financial crimes, but this is a bit of a snoozer. It could also be two prominent states for registering anonymous LLCs have the highest incidence of financial crimes. This gives you a starting point to explore if there's anything there. Or you could make it political and write a balanced article about a blue state and a red state. However, whatever story you end up with, this part of the data discovery process, that is, exploring it from different angles, understanding how to reframe the data, and generating a list of more questions to research, is interesting, challenging, and crucial.
Now that you've seen different data discovery approaches, practice them by downloading some sample data and getting to work. We introduced 3 different sources of open data, but there are many more out there. Be sure to check out those data sources, download some sample data, and try out the techniques from this lecture. In our next lecture, we'll pivot into analyzing the data.